Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 11th episode of the SERPs of the Week podcast, where we discuss various aspects of Google search engine results and strategies to enhance our site's rankings. I am your host, Alex Achal, and let me introduce to you our today's podcast guest, Bernard Huang. Bernard, welcome to the show.
Alex, thanks so much for having me. It's a true honor and pleasure.
My pleasure too, and thank you very much for coming. And it's especially I'm thrilled to have it just because we use ClearScope here, and we know, right, you guys have a lot of data insights in terms of how search engine results are shaped. And since today, right, we are going to discuss the new, right, search engine results that Google recently introduced to us, which is called Google Search Generative Experience, right? So that is our today's topic. But before that, I want to introduce Bernard. Bernard is the co-founder at ClearScope, as I've already mentioned, the content intelligence platform that serves thousands of companies, including Adobe, HubSpot, Condé Nast, and more. In the past, Bernard was the SEO consultant behind leading brands like DoorDash, AllTrails, Strava, and Compass. Bernard, one more time, welcome to the show. And let me straight go, to our main topic. And I just wonder, right, Google search engine generative experience. In short, what is that? Well, besides the end of SEO that we've been familiar with.
Yes, so to get into the nuts and bolts of it, Google Search Generative Experience is a way, an AI tool that Google has introduced on the top of search engine results pages, which pretty much summarizes what the top ranking search results are mentioning in terms of the query that you've typed in. It's something that Google has extended in terms of beta access, and it's part of their Search Labs features that should you opt into beta testing for Google, you can get access to it. So that's Google's newest take on how to infuse their search engine with AI.
Okay, great. I know that you have access to it, right?
I do,
So,
yes.
yeah, so let's take a look, right? So let's take a look, how does it really work, right?
Let's take a
Because I
look.
don't really have it. By the way, you need, right, to basically to subscribe somewhere, right? If you want to get access to such labs, it's kind of a waiting list, right?
That's right. So for all of you that do not have access to it, getting access is fairly easy. Assuming that you use Google Chrome, you would open up a Chrome instance and you'll notice that there's this little beaker that is right over here. You would essentially click on that. And because I've already gotten access to it, Google gives me this interface. But for those who don't, you would get this form that essentially allows you to opt into the waiting list to get access to all kinds of interesting things that Google is working on in their labs.
Cool. How long does it take from the moment when you basically submit your interest, right, till the moment you get the access?
I think it took me like a few days to a week.
Okay.
It was pretty short, but
It's
yes,
because you're special? No,
I don't think so. There wasn't any like specific things where Google was like, hey, share your LinkedIn or your Twitter or whatever, right? I think they just looked at my Google history and account and said, all right,
okay.
you look like a legitimate user. We'll let you in. I guess I do have a Google ad, like a personal Google Ads account that's linked to my my normal personal account. So that might be it. I do think that Google, by the way, this is my personal account. I do think that Google is less willing to give it to like G Suite like members. So I've not been able to get access with my Bernard at ClearScope account. So this is my
Okay.
personal account, and I think that was the going wisdom when I was talking with other SEO influencers who were getting access, was like, just apply for it on your personal account, and I think
Okay.
they're more likely to hand it out in that setting.
Okay, we have a question. Will it work in European region, right? Which is a good question because I'm based in the Netherlands, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
SGE is also limited to just English and perhaps just google.com.
So
Which
it's
is,
only for US-based users, basically.
yeah, that's common with how Google algorithm updates roll out, right? Generally speaking, Google will do something like a penguin or a panda or a helpful content update, and that rolls out first across, google.com in the US region. And then once those algorithm updates start to produce the results that they're looking for in a positive manner, then those then translate into rollouts in foreign or abroad.
Yeah, but I think due to the, some languages are quite tricky, right? And so there might be quite big differences in the way that each and every algo works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's give it a try.
Let's give it a try. Let's do it. Is there a particular topic or?
No, it's up to you.
Okay. Since we are all here to talk about search engine optimization and AI, I'll just go with something like, how will AI affect SEO like this?
Okay, let's see. Okay, it's Forbes.
Yes,
Well,
it's
I'm not surprised by that. It's influence the times. Okay, I see. Okay, so the kind of the links, right, that Google suggests to dig deeper on a particular topic, and I think, am I right that those links they are always a part of this journey, right? Of of those, let's call them snippets or whatever, extended results. They're
yeah.
always kind of a part. But if we look right at but it's quite interesting that the dig deeper links that we see over there, they are not really matching the top results. If you scroll down, right?
Yeah.
We see, so the snippet from here, right? It goes over there just
Yes.
because it's basically, it's,
This and this, right, are completely the same
mm-hmm,
here. And
mm-hmm.
then, these, I don't know where those are
Search engine
explicitly
journal,
coming
I
from.
don't really see it, right? Search engine lens, I'm sorry, it's not there, right? It's kind of
Yeah, this is not
just,
over here. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well,
Oh, it's
it's
here, but if you basically,
it's pretty far into this.
no, I don't really think you're going to dig, so, kind of scroll.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what does it suggest? A personalized search results, right? Keyword research and content optimization. Okay, content generation, voice search, scalability, user intent. Okay, quite interesting. But do you think, like, since you've been trying different search terms, right, and you've been seeing different results, how do you feel about the quality of those answers, whether you were satisfied with them or you think they're quite generic ones, and as a user, right, you'd better go with some particular posts, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. My current take on generative AI is negative. I think that it doesn't really add much to the search experience. It's slow, and a lot of the times it doesn't even fire like once you're in the midst of a bunch of Google searches. So you can imagine if I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's perform another Google search. Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
SEO? At some point it'll stop like generating because it just realizes that I'm not really even interacting or
Mm-hmm.
engaging with the generative like AI experience. So I think it's slow. I don't really think it adds anything. If anything, the way that I've been viewing it is that it's more of a enhancement on this featured snippet. right? In the cases where
it's kind of extended, I would say. It's kind of with some additions, right? It's kind of
exactly.
taking this and adds bits and pieces from some other posts, not necessarily the most informational parts, right?
That's right. Yes. So, yeah, I do find it helpful when I'm really just looking for something that a featured snippet is likely to help answer for me anyways. So, if I'm saying, what's the market cap of HubSpot, well, that would be what a featured snippet could help answer. And that's also what generative AI is able to give me. But in those cases, it's not like I'm clicking into a search result anyways. So I think that generative search is just like a better form of a featured snippet. And my hypothesis, my guess is that, if it ends up rolling out in this manner that we currently see, that it's really going to start by showcasing itself on queries that essentially are where featured snippets exist, right? Google has been pretty cautious to say that, for certain classes of queries, what you could expect from the your money, your life categories, chances are it's not going to give the generative AI because they want to be extra cautious about that. So my guess is that, yeah, like this ends, at least the experiment ends at the end of this year. And should it graduate into the search experience, that I think it would start with the featured snippets and like replacing or enhancing those. And then I think Google will then measure whether or not, that's actually helping the user find more of what they're looking for by, gauging subsequent actions and engagement rates on the SERP to then inform whether or not it's actually beneficial or not to have this sort of experience in their search engine.
Yeah, this all makes sense, but I just realized that basically this, whatever it is, extended snippet, let's say it in this way, it's kind of substituting the ad results.
Yeah. Yes.
And it doesn't make any sense, right? Just because if you look in Google, most probably someone is bidding for this keyword.
Yes.
And then the question is whether Google is going to kill their revenue streams by just basically, I mean, like for sure, in a perfect reality, in a perfect world, I understand that Google is only interested in helping, users to find better results, but in reality, it's just another business, right?
Yes.
And they're basically interested in continuously, in getting, revenue streams and growing their revenue streams. And right now, right, if you look for any, let's say more or less even informational, right, search term that actually have some commercial intent, right, especially if we talk about digital marketing related search terms, they all have some, advertising results, right, before the organic results.
Yes. Yes, that was a good point. I realize I use an ad blocker. So I'm like, I don't know where the ads are actually showing up. So that's why you saw me kind of go through and do that, because I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. I don't know if the ad placement would be above or below the generative AI. And then you can kind of see it like how like mapped out like this. Obviously, I don't think that this is the final implementation of.
Yeah, just because it's kind of becoming, search engine result page becomes so big and so long, then you don't, because normally, right, you have paid results above everything, above organic results and below, but it's kind of now it's killing the results below, right? What the point of going below?
Yeah.
Like SE ranking is kind of having no chance.
No chance. Well, hopefully they're not paying that much money, because this isn't. This is not.
I mean, like it's kind of pointless, right? You're either paying for the first results because it makes sense, then it's just kind of whatever it is. Only the one that really have enough stamina to scroll down.
Yes.
Just kind of trying to find something at the end, pagination maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, like Google's doing this thing as well, and
And
this
then
thing.
you have this one, then this one. I mean,
Yeah,
gosh,
and then
what
yeah,
else?
it's like by the time I'm getting to the actual Google search right now, I mean, I've obviously unfolded, you know, a bunch of the things
Yeah,
that they've folded in, but this is like, you know, 2 or 3 screens worth of scrolling before we like hit, you know, the number one like feature like thing in
yeah, but you know,
Google.
the funny thing, right, that all the information is basically taken from the first three, four, five, right,
Of
pages.
course.
So basically, what Google does is just taken, you know, kind of taken the information and not giving any credit.
Yep,
So the
absolutely.
next question is like, what the point of giving this information?
What's the point? Yeah, I think
Yeah, I mean, like, why should I give my information to Google, right? For the sake of making their results better and not giving any kind of benefits out of this, right? As a publisher.
yeah. The answer is, well, in the past, that you would get the Google love and rankings and traffic. Now, in a world where we've been seeing this style of thing happen for ages, right? This is nothing new in the sense that Google has always been cannibalizing its own ecosystem of searches,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can
Yeah,
imagine
absolutely.
the first cannibalization that we saw that nobody really cared too much about was
Yeah,
something
it's
like this.
about taking the weather information from some open source data, right? From other
Exactly.
publishers.
Yeah. And so, you know, like looking at it like this is great in that, you know, I'll check my weather on, you know, maybe my mobile phone or
Yeah,
somewhere
absolutely.
else. And Google said, you know, we'll just cannibalize that. And so this cannibalization is nothing new, right? It's always been happening. We're just seeing it happen a lot more aggressively when it comes to something
Mm-hmm.
like this. And now, you know, really the balance here is that, you know, is Google going to get into a lot of trouble from privacy concerns and, you know, those kinds of different things that the European Union is cracking down on as it relates to,
Yeah,
you know, like,
absolutely. European Union always has their own opinion on everything, right?
oh, for sure. And I think it's important, right? I think it's important
Yeah,
that
it kind of
the
it
internet
makes the
pushes
things
back.
different, right? Diversification, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more question about, you know, the result that we see, right? So, what will be your best guess about, you know, the link that we see right now as the one that, you know, we can say like deep links, whatever it is, Google called it. Why do we see, you know, these three particular links? What will be your best guess?
You mean like these in the carousel like over here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like, you know, like Wikipedia in the search engine results page in this particular result is position like 6.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it comes out number 1 over here. So, and then, you know, Moz is position 2 and it comes out 2
Mm-hmm.
over here, and then like relevance.com, it's not even specifically talking about what is SEO. It's like what are examples of SEO, and we kind
Mm-hmm.
of like don't really even see it on the front page. So,
Perfect, right?
right, all of
Kind of
that,
no logic, right?
it doesn't look like it's specifically following any kind of logic. If I were to guess, just looking at the what's showing up like this, I think my best interpretation of at least what Google is currently doing with this
Mm-hmm.
image pack thing is
Mm-hmm.
it's authority. It's just
Mm-hmm.
backlinks, right? Wikipedia,
Mm-hmm.
undisputably high authority. Moz, pretty much also undisputable high authority. You know, relevance.com, I haven't really heard of them or looked at them, but it's probably
Yeah,
okay.
I know them. They have a lot of links just back to this page.
Yeah. And then, you know, like US Chamber of Commerce or something,
Yeah, for
MailChimp,
sure.
you know, like it does feel like it's something very simple. And they're just kind of saying, okay, well, this is the most like backlinked or authoritative article, you know, irrespective of engagement. which is, the other
Uh,
like X factor. And they just say, yeah,
yeah.
well, we can trust this. They're like, I think focusing more on the trust aspect than the,
Mm-hmm.
whether the content quality is engaging and helping the user. They want to like lean more on the fact that, yeah, this domain is trustworthy, and that's why you want to
Yeah,
let
we've
you
been
see it.
knowing
Yeah.
this domain for ages. It was ranking in search engine results for, a decent time frame. It has topical authority and so on. It's making sense just because it's way easier, right, to rely on those, way kind of, those things. It's way easier, most probably, to evaluate, right, and to measure those things rather than trying to understand whether a particular page is actually helping user or not, and so on and so forth. But what I've just realized, that a snippet that we see here, right, the text that we see here, it
Mhm.
doesn't really, it's kind of, is it just kind of a, a combination, a compilation of different posts that we see in a carousel, or it's something else? Because it doesn't really give, Google doesn't really give any credits back to, this particular snippet that we see.
Yeah, I think the understanding amongst SEOs who have really scrutinized this is that it's a paraphrasing of what you
Okay.
see like working. So like for example, let's just kind of pull these up like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is the process of improving, right? It like almost mirrored the Wikipedia, right? Like over here.
Yeah,
And
with
then it started talking about
a bit of,
technical.
changing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, if we try to find like, link popularity, it's something that like eventually gets mentioned somewhere. But so I think, yeah, you can see here the second paragraph, right? Unpaid traffic,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like here kind of talking about the unpaid traffic like aspect as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I think it is kind of like a paraphrasing of the
Mm-hmm.
top results on, this particular topic. That's also why, it's not instantaneous because if it were instantaneous, it would be more of a plagiarism like concern.
Yeah, yeah,
So you could
yeah.
imagine what I would like think about in relation to this. I'm just gonna kind of open up like this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's sort of something that's like, paraphrase,
Uh-huh.
this. And then,
Yeah, most
like
probably.
this. I know we're getting into the infinite thing, traffic. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
something like this is probably,
yeah,
close to what Google is
yeah,
doing.
exactly. Okay, now it makes even more sense. And now, right, with having all these factors in mind, right, do you think, right, oh, well, obviously, right, what are the major changes that search generative experience brings to the way we need to approach on-page SEO? And if there are any changes, actually, right? So do
Yeah.
you think, what we've discussed so far, to sum this up? And especially knowing that you are on the side of ClearScope, right, a tool that
Yeah.
actually, right, helping us to optimize our content better for search engine results, right, for search audience.
Yes. I think that this you've heard it discussed like over and over again in,
Mm-hmm.
like talks in relation to artificial intelligence, but I do
Mm-hmm.
want to just re-emphasize for all of you listening and watching this webinar that this is, I think, one of the most important and, like perhaps not well understood concepts in SEO currently. So it's this idea that content needs to be additive and continue to bring value to the end user in the ways that the topic is evolving. So
Mm-hmm.
information gain refers to this idea of concepts and entities that are on the fringe of Google's understanding of the topic being discussed. That,
Mm-hmm.
in technical terms, is what we call the knowledge graph. So you could imagine, we're not going to, we'll ignore this like graphic for now, but if we're talking about search engine optimization, right? Like something like this, like SEO, you can imagine that really closely related to SEO is going to be, backlinks or keyword research or quality content or internal links, right? Something like that. We could even say that this is really actually just technical SEO. And then within technical SEO, you have internal links and you have, site load
Site
speed.
speeds, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So like this, and then you could imagine this is actually like, off-site SEO, and then
Yeah,
within
and
that,
you have
you have
on
backlinks.
page, right?
Yes, exactly. And then you have on page, which is like this. And then within that, you have like quality content. So, right, basically what I'm trying to hopefully help people visualize like this is that, one distance away from SEO, you have offsite SEO, keyword research, and like, technical SEO. Two distances away from SEO, you have quality content, internal links, site load speed. Three distances away from SEO. Now we're talking about like AI, right? And GPT and SGE, is like little fancy
Yeah.
acronyms, whatever, right? And then you can imagine four distances away, we have, this idea of like, hallucinations, like this, hallucinations, or, like inaccuracies, something like this, right? So now you can imagine what information gain looks like for SEO is actually talking about these, right? These are the like ways that we're seeing the topic evolve, and the inclusion of these as entities or terms is actually contributing in a meaningful way to the topic that we know as search engine optimization. That's basically what I'm trying to say here. So you can imagine that for certain topics that they're going to have a high amount of agreement, or in this particular case.
Yeah, it's about actually Yorgos mentioned this as well, that nowadays we have search engine result, they have quite the same information, which means that it's kind of informational symmetry that we have whenever we look for something, right?
Exactly. That's it. So you can imagine, right, if everybody agrees that search engine optimization is about offsite, on-page, technical SEO, and all that stuff, and we're all on the same page, then the way to win in those types of search engine results pages is by improving the overall coverage of entities that the topic is likely evolving towards. So, right, if we're talking about
Okay.
how to do SEO, we would be able to beat search engine land, Moz, whatever, by talking about, what you should be doing in relation to AI, GPT, hallucinations, plagiarism, all that stuff. Because, I'm not saying I've analyzed what Moz and MailChimp have currently written about or not, but I imagine, the pieces of content, had they not been updated over the last 3 to 6 months, are likely to not include any of these entities that we're seeing, Google basically start to care a lot more about, because it's seeing more co-occurrence or mentions of SEO with GPT, AI, and SGE. Now, a featured snippet is this, in my opinion. It's a highly symmetrical, very agreed upon outcome that we're certain about. So I call it a high confidence similarity agreement, in that, yes, we can all agree that a dog that is healthy has 4 legs, and that's, going to happen a large percentage of the time.
I'm
So,
sorry for interrupting you.
go
I
ahead.
just I just have one question actually. If we can circle back to the topic about, basically creating, right, covering additional topics that are, more relevant to the current state of things and so on. But do you think, right, if we approach this in a bit different way, and if right, but that is an assumption, just my assumption, that besides domain authority, there is also an author authority. So each author on the web has its own authority, which means that, and circling back to the, we've been discussing this about NerdWallet and so on, right? And, Forbes, all those big media publishers that are currently occupying a lot of search engine results, right? Just because they have such a huge domain authority and they've been actually on the market for quite a long time. But let's imagine if, one day, one brand, one more time that is real, and let's take NerdWallet. We'll hire authors of NerdWallet that have, for sure, posts of which have been ranking extremely well for ages to write content under their name on their websites.
Right.
Will that change, right, the perspective, even though the content might be not so perfect, but just by using their names and their kind of authority, right, and basically capitalizing on it.
Right. Yeah, I like what you're saying. I don't think we're entirely there yet, but it is one of those like crystal ball moments where we have to understand from a technical perspective, how is Google going to make
accept those entities, most probably, because author is just one of the entities, right, that they're kind of
and it's also
right, and giving some grades.
Yes, it's also not completely reliable. That's the main problem that I'm seeing with the let me see here. Yes, this is a crawl. This is yes. So this is right. This is about the best that I can like think about it from a technical perspective, right? Which is what Google, from a programming standpoint, is likely to be, pondering at a high level. Is that we have schema and rich snippet data that we're feeding to the engine. Some of us are and some of us aren't, like how Flying might not be doing. I did an analysis on this like recently because we were looking at the idea of authorship as
that is interesting.
And I was thinking about it that, okay, the only way that Google could really infer this in a very accurate manner is by looking at this, right, where we now see this author thing, and we know it's Amanda Barroso, and that she focuses on this, that, and that, and here's her email address. Anyways, so I do think that this would be the way that Google knows. And then what Google would be doing is that they would be then saying, okay, well, this as a piece of content is currently rank, 2, if we're counting this as a featured snippet. And so therefore, like Amanda knows how to write about, this as a topic. And when I see Amanda write something that's similar to, how to improve credit
on another website,
on another website, then it's like likely to do well. And I do think that Google has announced and made strides towards that. I think you're referring to like Google authorship.
Yeah, authorship. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, like so. Okay, no, this is a little old, but
yeah, I mean, it's just kind of evolving as well. It's just with the launching of those knowledge graphs and so on. I think it's kind of becoming stronger and stronger, right? If you have a solid footprint, and if your name is kind of quite unique, I would say, associated with a particular topic, then it should bring some additional, I don't know, kind of hidden ranking factors, we can say.
Yeah, I think the caveat to this is that it's too easily gameable in its current implementation. So that's my only like hesitation as to Google adopting it, in a very impactful manner. Because it's like, I could say that, Amanda Barroso wrote my piece of content on, like improving credit scores. Chances are Amanda Barroso is not going to know for a very long time. And by the time she like finds it, I might be on the front page of Google. And then I'm like, oh, whoops, like let me
that was
change
just a
it.
technical mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
I was looking at your piece on NerdWallet for inspiration. So that's that's where I look at it from a technical perspective, and I'm like, I think we're still off from authenticity, right? Like, how does Google actually know that that's the same person who wrote that? And this is where blockchain technology or Web3 could eventually come into play. But yeah, I do think it's an interesting direction to consider, and I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, to sum this up, talking about Google search generative experience, it's kind of, in your opinion, it's not the end of SEO, right?
No, it really is not. It's the beginning of hopefully better SEO. And I think that my current opinion is, as it stands, I expect search generative experience to evolve into like Google Chat. And we're seeing that happen with like tools like perplexity.ai. The answer to any question, I can ask it, how will AI affect SEO, right? And essentially what this is doing is the same thing that generative search is trying to do. And then you can kind of see here that it's calling out citations like this, right? That came from Forbes. These three came from those three. And so, this as an experience, I think is a better version
It's
of
a kind of conversational,
right.
basically.
Exactly. And then you'd be like,
search results, I would say, right?
yeah, so should I be scared that SEO will change? And so I do think that what's going to happen is that a certain set of searches and topics that may have originally started on Google are no longer going to start on Google, and they're going to graduate into something like this type of experience. You see it with ChatGPT, you see it with Perplexity. So I'll just say right now, my best guess is that Google launches something called Google Chat. And
that will be a separate service, basically, right? If you want it, if you need it.
Yes, this is my current high level take, is that there'll be a Google Chat, and if you wanted to go and just have this back and forth with like an AI assistant, then you'll go and visit one of those tools. However, right, if you're like doing searches, you want the research, you want to click around, you want to look at what other people are writing about, and that's
you want to analyze it rather than
exactly rather than having
quite clumsy ones sometimes, right?
Yes, you got it. And all in all, that's to say that that's exactly what's been happening with search. There's nothing new in the sense that you don't start your e-commerce searches as much on Google. You just go to Amazon or Walmart and you search there, right? You don't start your like how-tos on, like skateboarding tricks or whatever on Google. You just go to YouTube, you go, how to skateboard, how to do an ollie. So all of that is to say that the shape of the queries that will produce traffic on Google search is going to change. But Google search, I think, is still going to be extremely relevant. It's still going to stay around. And yeah, we're just going to lose a lot more of these like kind of perspective questions that that will just graduate into like a chat GPT, a Google chat, or a perplexity like .ai.
Thank you very much, Bernard. This all makes total sense. Thank you very much for guiding us through this topic and for sharing your expertise, your insights. Thank you very much for very insightful conversation. Now I have a lot of things, to think of, right? And, appreciate this conversation and being so open for sharing your knowledge.
Of
Thank you
course.
for joining us today, and I hope that you can join us one more time sometime later. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and have a great day.
Yes, you too.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.